Welcome back for another episode of Errant Adventures, the solo actual play podcast where stories are told at the speed of dice. With me, Steve Morrison, your game master and solo player. Now come on, let's grab the dice and see where our story goes. Welcome back for Chapter 7 of Book 1, Meridian. Last time, Sejana realizes she's not going to be able to open the portal back to the cargo bay aboard the Howlin' Wolf. So she returns to the console and deactivates the station's defenses and alarm system. She also uploads a virus that will confuse attempts to remotely activate the defenses and wipe evidence of their presence from the databanks. Calling Ayati to dock and pick them up, Sejana and Ainur lock the control room door on their way out and head for the airlock. The other guards seem completely oblivious to their presence, and the two of them make it to the airlock where Ayati has docked the ship. They board and leave the relay, heading back towards Cassida. On the transit back, Sejana reaches out to her media contact, Sarai Newtone, and confirms that the information came through and will be sufficient. She feels confident GenCorp is going to have a lot to answer for. Once they're back on Cassida, Ainur receives a message from Mr. Zhang, the owner of the Wolf, requesting a meeting. He says goodbye to Ayati in case he's about to get fired. He and Sejana walk out together. She can tell something is bothering him, but he won't say. As they depart the Howlin' Wolf, Sejana is shot by an assassin with a rifle. She takes a kinetic round to her left shoulder and goes down, rolling beneath the safety of the boarding ramp. Using a miniature drone in her Technomancer gauntlet, she's able to spot the assassin on the roof of the berth and prepares to fight back. Last week's episode definitely ended with a bang as this assassin fired at Sejana and hit her quite badly, but thanks to her flak jacket armor and the armor built into her deep skin that she pretty much is always wearing when she is quote unquote on duty, when she's doing a liar's work, she takes this bullet in the shoulder, goes down, but she is still up and fighting. So she currently has an endurance of 1, she has her dexterity of 9, and her strength of 7. She's maybe, one good shot away from being unconscious, and maybe 2 shots away from being dead, or 1 really, really strong shot away from being dead. So things are really tense, but Sejana is down underneath this boarding ramp, and she has gotten a bead on where this individual is on top of the berth. And so she's going to kind of scooch to the other side. She's got her laser pistol in her hand, and she's getting ready to hang out from behind this ramp and take fire at the assassin. If only it were that easy. They're both going to have to roll initiative to see who is going to act first. So this is going to be a dexterity or intellect check at the start of combat. So Sejana is going to roll 2d6 plus her int because her intellect is a 12, so she gets a +2 mod on this. That is not great for her. So that is 6 on the dice, +2 is an 8. So the assassin has a dexterity of 10, but an intellect of only 8. So they're definitely going to roll their dexterity in order to get that +1 bonus. So 2d6 +1, 7 on the dice, +1 is an 8. So Sejana and the assassin tie. So I'm going to say they probably are going to act pretty much simultaneously. Ainur is out here with Sejana as well, and he does have a gun that he carries on him. So I'm going to roll initiative for him as well. He is also going to roll his intellect. Oh, wow. That is 11 on the dice, +1 is a 12 for Ainur. So Ainur is going to act first. I think looking at his sheet, he does have a little bit in medic. So I wonder if he is able to apply some sort of first aid to Sejana, and if that is going to take too much time for this kind of combat situation. So I'm gonna go look up medic real quick. First aid, average check, 1D rounds, education, Patient regains lost characteristics points equal to the effect. Okay, so I'm going to say that Einar is going to attempt a medic check. We're going to roll the d6 for the number of rounds. And if it is more than a 1, I think that he's going to be kind of out of the fight. And what this represents is like Sejana leans out from behind cover and is taking shots and then ducking back. And Einar is there kind of like moving back and forth, trying to stitch her up a little bit. So we're going to roll first the first aid check. So this is an 8+ medic check. Einar gets a +2 on this, 1 for his education and 1 for his skill level as a medic. So that's 10 plus 2 is 12, which is an effect of 4. So Sejana is going to regain 4 characteristic points in her endurance, but let's see how many rounds it's going to take. Oh, I rolled a 1. So Sejana like scoots around Einar and is getting ready to lean out, and he pulls out a small med kit that he keeps in a pouch on his belt, and it has a small stimulant stick in it, which he basically removes and just jabs into the gunshot wound on her shoulder, and these tiny little nanites get injected in and begin sealing up the wound. And we are going to give Sejana 4 points back on her endurance, which is great. That means she is a little bit better off in this moment. Now, the assassin and Sejana are going to act simultaneously. Because the assassin didn't win the initiative, he's unable to get an aim action off here, but the same is true for Sejana. So it's going to be just a straight up kind of attack in both of their cases. So Sejana with her gun combat, she's got her laser pistol. It is a 2 for her. So 2d6 plus 2 as she leans out. Holy cow, I just rolled double 6s. So that is 12 plus 2 is 14 on this attack. That is massive. Now, the thing I don't remember is if there is any benefit to having rolled double 6s. I'm not seeing anything at the moment that indicates that rolling double 6s on an attack grants any sort of extra bonus or anything like that. So we're just going to roll with it, and we're going to say it's a 14 total, but I'm going to subtract 2 because the assassin is on top of this berth. He gets a little bit of cover from Sejana being in that position. So that's just going to drop it back down to a 12. So that's going to leave her with an effect of 4 on this attack. So we're going to roll 3d6 plus 3 for the laser pistol plus another 4 for the effect on this shot. So that is 10 plus 7, 17 total damage, minus 5 for the flak armor that the assassin is wearing. That's going to be 12 total. Now, the assassin has an endurance of 8, so that is going to get taken down to 0. And then a dex of 10 and a strength of 6. And for those 4 remaining points, I'm going to put those into the strength because dex is the number that he is going to be shooting back with. So we don't want to cripple him on that. But Sejana gets a strong hit in with her laser pistol, and he kind of stumbles back a little bit as he's sighting her in, and he is going to fire as well back at her. Now, he is using an advanced combat rifle, which is pretty gnarly. It's got a scope, and it does 3D damage. More importantly, though, it has auto 3. And as much as I want to keep Sejana safe here, I don't see any reason why he wouldn't use the automatic feature on his weapon. This could be really, really grim. So when you have an auto weapon, you can attack in 3 different modes. You've got a single attack, which is a normal attack. You have a burst attack, add the auto score to damage. This uses a number of rounds equal to the auto score. Or you can go full auto, making a number of attacks equal to the auto score, in this case 3. These attacks can be made against separate targets so long as they are all within 6 meters of one another. Full auto uses a number of rounds equal to 3 times the auto score. Okay, so let's think about this here. This assassin has been sent to kill Sejana Lushale. Having fired off a shot, seeing her go down, kind of crawling up into a crouch and watching to make sure that she doesn't get up. And then she pops out and fires a shot at him, and he's returning fire. It almost makes sense that he would use the burst mode instead of full auto in this particular case, because he's not trying to spray down the whole area down there. He's still trying to have a little bit of accuracy in this moment. So I'm going to say that it is a burst attack, which means we're going to add that auto score of 3 onto the damage if he hits. So I'm going to roll 2d6 plus 3 for him because he doesn't have an opportunity to aim this round. But I'm going to take a -2 because Sejana is also behind cover. So here we go. This is a net of +1 on this attack. Holy dice, I rolled 2 6s again for a 12 +1. What are these dice doing? So that is a 13 total, which is an effect of 5. Oh boy. Okay. So 3d damage on this combat rifle, +3 from the auto score for the burst. 10 damage, +3 is 13, +5 is 18 damage to Sejana. Now, she has her flak jacket as well as her deep skin, so that's going to take 8 off of it. So she's going to take 10 damage, which means that she is going to go down to 0 endurance because she's currently sitting at 5, and she is going to take 5 damage to her strength or dexterity. Well, she's in a shootout, so she is also going to take it to her strength. Holy cow. She takes another burst shot from this guy, and it peppers across her armor and I think catches her along her neck. And it doesn't sever the jugular or anything like that, but she's bleeding from this spot on her neck where the bullet whizzed by and cut her skin apart. And her flak jacket absorbed some of the blow, but she is on her back, wheezing from the impacts, and her vision is kind of closing in around her. Wow, I did not expect 2 12s back-to-back attacks. Our assassin is sitting at only 2 hit points, for lack of a better word, on his strength before he goes unconscious. Is he going to try and finish the job, or does his own survival instinct kick in and he is going to retreat? I think it's likely that he's going to retreat. He knows that he hit her twice. The first time around, and then this time with the burst shot. So he might just leave it to fate and hope that she bleeds out while he gets out of here. So I'm going to say it's likely. So 75 or less, he is going to turn and get out of there, because I think there are alarms going off all around Heraklion Starport. I mean, this is this like second time in a couple of days that there's a gunfight going on in this berth. So that's probably going to have some impact in the future as well. So we're going to say 75 or less, he gets out of there. 88 is a no. Not only is it a no, but when you roll doubles on an oracle roll, there's a twist or a complication of some sort. So what would be the complication on his decision to stay here? Not even necessarily complication, because it doesn't have to be a bad thing for our characters, it could just be a further complication. Well, I think there's an obvious complication that the security is quicker to respond because there's already been one shootout that's happened in this space in the last few days. But I'm going to do something that I haven't done yet. I'm going to consult my Ironsworn Starforged oracles and roll on action and theme. So it's a D100 roll, and then I've got a list of 100 prompts on the action table. Then I'll roll another D100 and have another different 100 prompts on the theme table. So our action is 48, follow, and our theme, 43, history. Follow history. How could that be a complication for this particular decision to stay here? Oh, I've got it. Okay. So the reason that this assassin chooses to stay and make sure that he has finished the job is because he and Sejana have tangled before. They have a history between the two of them. And I think last time they interacted, he came away the loser. He took the worst of whatever their last tangle was. He not only took this job because he's getting paid to assassinate someone that he hates, but also he hates her and he wants to see her die. And so he is going to stick with it. And I'm actually going to roll initiative again for the two of them because they tied that first time around. This isn't necessarily in keeping with the rules, but I kind of want to see if one of them has the edge on being able to draw and fire first. So Sejana will roll intellect again. That's +2. Holy shit. I wish that I was recording these dice. I rolled 2 6s again. I don't even know what to do with this. I'm afraid to change my dice because I'm afraid that it's going to go poorly either way. So that's a 14 for Sejana, which makes me feel like she's probably going to win this initiative. In fact, the assassin cannot beat her because he only has a dexterity of 1. But I want to roll the dice and see what I get anyways. Okay, not double 6s for the 3rd time in a row. So it's a 6 + 1 is a 7. So unsurprisingly, he acts a little slower. Sejana takes these hits. She hits the ground. She's on her back. She's bleeding profusely. Her vision is narrowing down. But Sejana Lushale was a member of the Imperial Special Service. And you don't get to be a member of the Imperial Special Service without going through rigorous training. Some of that training involves being put in intense situations and being forced to react. Not only that, Sejana is a technomancer, and technomancer training is even more crazy because they are dealing with these mystical forces of void space. So Sejana's on her back. Her eyesight is starting to wane as this darkness is threatening to claim her. And she, seeing in the distance this figure struggling as well, brings up her laser pistol, draws a bead, and is going to take another shot. So she's going to use her minor action to aim, which will give her a +1. So it'll be a +3 total on this attack. 7 on the dice, +3 is a 10. So that is a hit with 2 effect. Damage is going to be 3d6 +5 because of the weapon and the damage. And holy shit, another pair of 6s on this dice roll. So this is 15 on the dice plus another 5 is 20 total damage, which means we're going to negate 5 of that because of the assassin's flak armor, which leaves 15. He's got a strength of 2. He's got a dex of 10. That leaves him with -3 because 15 minus 12 is -3. So He is stumbling back a little bit from his own blast from this laser shot. He returned fire with this burst of kinetic ammunition, and he's drawing a bead once again as Sejana aims down the sight of her laser pistol, and she puts a laser bolt directly through the scope, through the eye of this assassin, whose head snaps back and he falls backwards onto the roof of this berth, dead. Now, Sejana's not unconscious, but I think flavor-wise, she drops her arm to the ground. She's bleeding all over, and her vision kind of goes in and out and in and out as the darkness is threatening to claim her. I think an important question here is, can a person have first aid done to them multiple times? Because we've already had one instance of first aid. I'm going to go read the rules for this and then come back. We'll see what it says. All right, so I looked at the healing rules, and first aid can only be successfully applied once. So that has already been done. Leaving combat because there are no more enemies in sight, what we can say is that Sejana is laying there bleeding all over the place. Einar clambers over her. She can hear him speaking, but she's not sure if he's speaking to her or not, as everything is really distant and almost sounds like she's underwater. And he is hovering over her, slapping down patches on her wounds as they're burbling out blood. And he is going to basically try to staunch the bleeding. At that point, her vision does go dark and she fades into unconsciousness. So, Sejana has currently an endurance of 0, a strength of 2, and a dexterity of 9. She has not taken any damage to her dexterity, but she has taken damage to her strength and her endurance. If she had damage to all 3 of her characteristics, she would need surgery in order to survive. But that's not the case. So instead we go to medical care. A traveler who has only 1 or 2 damage characteristics after first aid has been applied can benefit from medical care. Medical care restores 3 plus the traveler's endurance, DM, plus the doctor's medic skill in characteristic points per day, divided evenly among all damage characteristics. Medical care requires a hospital or sickbay and for the traveler to undergo full bed rest. In high-technology hospitals, standard procedure in most cases is to use the slow drug, which is on page 115. Let's take a look real quick at the slow drug. Slow drug. This is a variant of the metabolic accelerator. It can only be applied safely in a medical facility where life support and cryotechnology is available, as it increases the metabolism to around 30 times normal, allowing a patient to undergo a month of healing in a single day. Using this drug outside of a hospital or sickbay is a messy and painful way to commit suicide, as the user will rapidly cook their internal organs and suffer massive brain damage. Slow drug costs CR 500 per dose. So that sounds expensive. Now, technically, I think Sejana could afford that. I don't know that that would be the first thing that these doctors in the hospital would go to. So let's deal with this real quick, and then we're going to shift the scene. So if medical care restores 3 plus the traveler's endurance DM plus the doctor's medic skill in characteristic points per day divided evenly among all damage characteristics, let's figure out how many days Sejana is going to be in the hospital before she is restored to full health. So because Sejana has an endurance of 0, she is at a -3 modifier for that. So that means that the base 3 -3 is a 0 plus the doctor's medic skill. They're in Devonshire, the capital of the Cassidon system, which is one of the most technologically advanced and civilized systems in what used to be the Masked Empire. So I definitely think it's easily the doctor's medic skill is a 3. So I think she's going to regain 3 characteristic points for that first day that she's in the hospital. Now, because we have to divide them evenly, obviously I've got 3 points. I've only got 2 things to put them into. It would behoove me to put them into endurance, but I don't know that I can just say that that's where that point is going to go. So I'm going to say 1 to 3, that extra point goes to strength. 4 to 6, that point is going to go to endurance. Of course, it's a 1. So strength regains 2, endurance regains 1. That's the first day. The second day, since she no longer has a -3 modifier, she's got a -2 modifier, she's going to gain 4 points. So we can do 2 points to strength, 2 points to endurance. Same thing for the third day, but she's only going to put 1 point into strength because that gets her back up to full, and then 3 points into endurance, which is going to take her to a 0 modifier. She's at 6 endurance. And on the final day that she's going to be in the hospital, she will recover the rest of her endurance. So I believe she spent 4 days in the hospital, which honestly, for getting shot a couple of times, not so bad. Even though she only needs like 4 days in the hospital, I think she is going to spend another few days convalescing back in her quarters on the Howlin' Wolf. So essentially a week of time is going to pass where Sejana is out of operation. So let's go back. Let's reset the scene. Einar Stargleam has just watched medics cart Sejana Lushale off into a drift car and race off to one of the local hospitals. Ayati is standing next to him, watching as the unconscious liar is carted away. She looks over at Einar's hands, which are covered in Sejana's blood. And he's just looking down at them, rubbing his fingers together, almost as if he's confused by why there's so much blood there. And Ayati reaches out a hand and rests it on his shoulder and says, "Hey, you all right? She's going to be okay, right? Like, she's going to make it?"
"Yeah, she's going to make it. She's a tough woman. I have no doubt of that. She'll get the care she needs. I just don't understand why such a thing would happen."
And he kind of looks up at the roof where the assassin is still laying because Cassidon security has arrived and have kind of started cordoning off the area, but they haven't removed the body up there yet. And he says,
"Was this because of what we did? Was she the target, or was it any one of us? Was she just the unlucky one who took the first shot? What if I'd exited the ship by myself, or even worse, what if you had?"
He turns and looks Ayati in the eyes and says,
"We're not cut out for this kind of life. Gunfights and assassins and going up against corporations. We're just merchants plying our trade across the stars."
Ayati squeezes his shoulder and says, I know how you feel, but the things that GenCorp was doing, well, they were wrong, and somebody needed to stand up against them. And yeah, maybe we're not cut out for gunfights, but don't forget, we did good. We may not have fixed the system, but we made a difference, and that's what matters. I understand where you're coming from. I'm terrified to think of what would have happened if they'd shot you. I don't know. I don't want to think about it. Oh, look, an inspector's coming over. I guess we should talk to them. An inspector comes over and listens to Einar's story and takes some notes. once the scene has been cleared and they make sure that Einar himself isn't injured, he goes back into his quarters and he cleans off the blood. And he sends a message to Mr. Zhang that he's been delayed. But Einar Stargleam is not a Huldran who misses appointments, even in the face of the potential assassination of someone who's become a friend. And so a couple hours later, Ayati has already headed off to the hospital to check on Sejana, to make sure she's not alone when she wakes up. But Einar gets into a drift car and heads to the offices of Zhang Import-Export. It's already starting to get dark as the drift car pulls up. He gets out and he buttons his suit coat of his second suit, since his best suit has been covered in human blood, and he makes his way into the office. There's still a few people working, and very quickly he gets directed to a waiting area outside of Mr. Zhang's office. He waits for only 3 or 4 minutes before the door opens, and Mr. Zhang is standing there. Now, Mr. Zhang is a man in his late 50s, a human. He is well dressed with salt and pepper hair that's combed back, and he gestures for Einar to join him. Einar stands and approaches the office and follows Mr. Zhang into the room. Mr. Zhang shuts the door behind him, and Mr. Zhang says, "Einar, it's good to see you. I was concerned when I had reports that there was a shooting, the second shooting in the last week, at our berth. I must confess, I'm rather concerned with this trend. Please sit."
Mr. Zhang, perhaps I can explain.
Of course, I would love to hear an explanation, but first, would you care for a drink? I've got some Calhouns here, if you have a fancy. Einar feels a little awkward for a moment and says,
Yes, please. It's been a hell of a day.
Yes, well, we haven't had a chance to speak in person since the first shooting, but considering both of these shootings seem to involve that liar that you've been berthing on my ship, I wonder if we might start there.
Yes, sir.
So, when you told me months ago that a liar wanted to rent a berth on our ship, I remember thinking then that it was a poor decision to say yes. On the other hand, there are advantages to having a liar on your ship. Security against pirate raids when out on a shipping run. The opportunity to gain some insider information on different worlds when visiting them. So I said yes. But now I'm beginning to wonder about that investment, seeing as my ship has been endangered twice, my crew has been endangered twice, and people have died both times. So tell me, Einar, why is this liar still on my ship?
Well, Mr. Zhang, everything you say is, of course, correct. But there is some nuance. That first shootout was not initiated by Lushale. She was attacked by 3 thugs from GenCorp. The second shooting was an assassin trying to kill her, maybe, we assume, but I suppose it could have been any of us.
Mr. Zhang, who has been standing at the window looking out over the Davonshire cityscape, turns back with a quizzical look and says, "And why, Einar, would an assassin want to kill you or Ayati?"
Ah, well. That speaks to the main reason I assume you called me here, which is our unscheduled flight to Felicia.
Yes, Einar, you and I have always had an understanding, and I have trusted you with my ship, and with a great deal of goods to be moved, and you've always done well for me. So, understand that I want to give you a certain leeway in this situation. But you burned hard for Felicia, seemingly did not land whatsoever, and then burned hard to get back. And I'm just wondering why you would go on a pleasure cruise with my ship and waste that much fuel, unless there was a good reason. At this point, Mr. Zhang sets his glass down on the desk and leans forward and says, "So tell me, Einar, do you have a good reason for why all these things are happening?" Thanks for listening to Errant Adventures. If you enjoyed the show, please spread the word. And if you want to support the show directly, leave me a review or support me on Patreon at patreon.com/errantadventures. You can also buy me a coffee at ko-fi.com/errantadventures. If you want to interact with me, my handle on all the socials is @errantsolopod, or you can email me at errantsolopod@gmail.com. I also post short fiction and campaign-related materials on my website, errantadventurespod.com. Thanks again for listening, and I'll see you in the deep, liars.